Hello class 6. Today we'll be doing writing of chemical equations and then balancing the equation. Now you will follow each step that I do. So please be ready with your paper and pen as well as pencil. Follow each step along with me. If you see, the first equation is carbon plus oxygen gives out carbon monoxide. Now, this form of equation is called word equation. That means I have given you word equations. You have to write it in the form of chemical equations. Now we've already learned how to write symbols and then how to write chemical formulas. So using that method, we will write the equation now. Okay, so please be ready. So symbol for carbon is C plus oxygen. We have learned that the symbol for oxygen is O, but it is always found in the diatomic state. That means during a reaction, it does not react as O, but it always reacts as O2. So carbon plus oxygen, that means C plus O2. Now next to O2, you will see that there is an upward arrow. Now in the last chemistry class, I had given you all a set of rules. In that rule, I had mentioned that an upward arrow indicates that it is a gas. We all know oxygen is a gas, so next to oxygen, I will put an upward arrow. Gives out carbon monoxide. Now, carbon is C and we know oxide is O. Monoxide means there is only one oxide in it or one atom of oxygen, so it will be CO. So whenever there is monoxide, that means you will find only one oxygen atom in it. So C plus O2 gives out CO. So this is the equation, chemical equation for the word equation. Now we have to balance the equation. Now what does balancing of equation mean? Now we know that the left hand side of the arrow are the reactants and the right hand side of the arrow are the products. And we have already done in the previous classes that matter cannot be created nor can it be destroyed. That means the number of reactants that we have taken should be equal to the number of products. So we have to balance the equation if it is not balanced. Now if you look at the picture that I am showing you all, just below the equation that we have written, I have drawn a table, a small table where E stands for elements, LHS stands for left hand side, and RHS stands for right hand side. All of you will also draw this table now. So the elements in the left hand side will be same as the elements in the right hand side. So the elements that are present in the equation are C and O, that is carbon and oxygen. So below element, that is E, write C and O. Please use a pencil for balancing your equation as I have done. Now let's count the number of atoms of carbon in the left hand side. Next to carbon there is no number, that means it is 1. So we write 1 under LHS next to carbon. Now oxygen, there are 2 atoms next to O, there is number 2. So under LHS we will write 2. That means 1 atom of carbon and 2 atoms of oxygen. Similarly, we will count the number of atoms in the right hand side. Now this side is a compound, carbon monoxide, in which there is only one. If no number is written, that means one atom of carbon and one atom of oxygen is present. So in the table that we have made, next to carbon, write under RHS, write 1, and oxygen under RHS, write 1. Now if you see the table, the number of carbon atoms in the left hand side and right hand side is same, 1 and 1. But if you see oxygen in the left hand side, there are two atoms of oxygen, and in the right hand side, there is only one. That means it is not balanced. Which side is less? The right hand side. So we have to add numbers to balance the equation on the right hand side since it is less towards the right. Now, since oxygen is less towards the right hand side, I will have to write numbers to balance the equation. So, I will write 2 in front of carbon monoxide. Now, just because oxygen is less, I cannot write 2 in between C and O. I have to write the number in front of CO because it is a compound. It is one compound. So whenever we are writing a balancing in case of use of a compound, we have to write numbers in the front and not in between the compound. So when I write 2 in front of CO, come and see the table. C also becomes 2, that is, carbon also becomes 2, oxygen also becomes 2. So see the table, carbon is now 1 in the left hand side and 2 in the right hand side, whereas oxygen is 2 in both the left hand side and the right hand side. So now carbon is not balanced and it is less in the left hand side. We have to now balance carbon also. Now carbon is not balanced in the left hand side. So I will write 2 in front of carbon in the left hand side. So come and check the table. Now carbon also becomes 2. So let's check. Carbon is 2 in the left hand side and 2 in the right hand side. Oxygen is 2 in the left hand side and 2 in the right hand side. So now my equation is balanced. So please make sure whenever you write an equation, your equation is balanced. I hope you all understood this example and you all have done it along with me. If not, please do it again. Thank you. Now the next example. So if you see the word equation, it has been written as nitrogen plus oxygen gives out nitrogen dioxide. So now we'll write the chemical equation like the first one using symbols and formula. Now we start writing the chemical equation. Symbol for nitrogen is N. Like oxygen, it is also found in the diatomic state. That means always two atoms of nitrogen, they combine together. Okay, so N2 and an upward arrow indicating it is a gas plus oxygen O2 upward arrow indicating it is a gas gives out nitrogen dioxide. Now in the first example, if you remember, it was carbon monoxide, and I told you mono means one. That means only one atom of oxygen is present in it. Whereas here it is nitrogen dioxide. Di meaning two. So NO2, that means two atoms of oxygen are present. This is also a gas, so we write an upward arrow next to NO2. So N2 plus O2 gives out NO2. This is the chemical equation. Now we have to balance it. In the first example, I had told you that we have to draw a table with 3 columns. the first one. In the first one, you write the name or the symbols of the elements. Then LHS standing for left hand side, RHS standing for right hand side. Here we have two elements, that is nitrogen and oxygen, that is N and O. So now we count the number of atoms of nitrogen and oxygen in the left hand side. So it is N2, that means 2 atoms of nitrogen, and it is O2, that means 2 atoms of oxygen. So we write it down in the table. Left hand side, nitrogen 2, oxygen 2. Now we count the number of atoms in the right hand side. Now in the right hand side, NO2. No number is written next to N. That means the number of atoms of nitrogen is 1 and oxygen is 2. So in the column towards the right hand side, N1O2. Now if we see, we find that nitrogen in the left hand side is 2 and right hand side is 1. Oxygen in the left hand side is 2. Oxygen in the right hand side is 2. That means nitrogen is not balanced. It is less towards the right hand side. So we start adding numbers towards the right hand side. Now since nitrogen is less towards the right hand side, I will write 2 in front of NO2. So when I write 2 in front of NO2, N becomes 2. So I cut off 1 in the column and then write 2. Now C for oxygen. Now with NO2, O is also there, and 2 is meant for both N and O. Once I write it in front of NO2, 2 is both for N and O. So now we multiply, since O is already 2 and we have written 2 in the front, 2 2s are 4. So in the column, cancel 2 and write 4. Now if you see the table, nitrogen in the left hand side is 2, in the right hand side it is also 2. Oxygen in the left hand side is 2, whereas in the right hand side it is 4. So now oxygen is not balanced and it is less towards the left hand side. Since oxygen is less towards the left hand side, we write 2 in front of O2, that is in the left hand side. So that makes oxygen 2 2s are 4 in the left hand side too. So now check the column. Nitrogen 2 in the left hand side, 2 in the right hand side, oxygen 4 in the left hand side and 4 in the right hand side. That means now it is balanced. Okay, so this is how you balance the equations, and please now try this on your own. Thank you.